بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد.
So we were talking about the personal life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we talked about his children last week, and we talked about last week I was sick, I think, right? I wasn't here. The week before, and we talked about his uncles and aunts. I think that's where we stopped last week. And we said that he has 4 or 5 aunts. We know Safiya, radiallahu anha, who became a Muslim and a very good Muslim. She's the mother of Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. Zubayr ibn al-Awwam is one of the 10 promised Jannah. And of course, that means her husband, Zubayr ibn al-Awwam's wife is Asma bint Abi Bakr. And they had the child, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, in Medina. And then there is Atika, radiallahu anha, and Arwa, Umayma, and Hakim. We know that Safiya and Atika, most likely, became Muslim. The rest, we are not sure. It's possible that they passed before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam started to preach Islam. All right. Now let's talk about his wives. I think it's nice to memorize his wives' names in order. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's wives, to memorize their names in the order of which he married them. Of course, the first wife and the most beloved wife to him, the wife he really loved, and she's the only one he married as the normal human being before prophethood. So as a human being, a man who loved a woman and married her, and they had a very happy life, it's an example for a happy life between husband and wife. Khadija radiallahu anha, Khadija buntu Khuwaylid. There are different opinions about how old she was, but most likely she was 40, and the Prophet ﷺ was 25. She was 15 years older than him. But that, of course, did not affect their love. They loved each other. And all of his children were from Khadija, radiallahu anha, except for Ibrahim. Ibrahim was from Maria, and he was the last one. Khadija is, of course, given a few things to honor her, and those things were not given to anyone else out of the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. First, like we said, the first wife, he loved her the most. He married her as a normal man who loved a woman, because the rest of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, most of them were commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're going to get to that. Allah commanded him to marry some of those wives. But Khadija, he married her out of his own love, and all of his children, again, except for Ibrahim, were from Khadija radiyallahu anha. She's the first female Muslim. We all know she's the very first female Muslim, Khadija. And she basically sacrificed everything for her husband. Her money, even her life. They said the reason why she died was because of the boycott inside the land of Abu Talib. She got really sick, even though she had the choice of not being there, because she's from a noble family. And the boycott was against Banu Hashim, the tribe of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she's not from Banu Hashim. So she did not have to be there. But she said, I am with my husband wherever he is. And because of that, she got very sick. And wa alaikum salam, right after the boycott ended, she passed away. So Khadija radiallahu anha chose to be by the side of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imagine this nobility and this beautiful thing to do. The wife can be at home, she has food and drink and everything normal, and her husband will be suffering and hungry in the Sha'ib, the land of Abu Talib, but she chose to be with her husband. She chose hunger and that over being again, living a normal life. And because of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we mentioned this before, sent her Jibreel to give her salam. And that was not given to any female in the world. That Jibreel comes to tell her that Allah is giving you salam. This is an honor that was not given to any woman in the world since Adam alayhi salam. For Jibreel to come to tell Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Allah is giving her salam. So this is a great honor for Khadija radiyallahu anha. And one more thing, she did not get to see the victory of Islam. She died in Mecca. She lived and died in Mecca during the difficult years. Some of the companions did not see the golden days. They didn't see, actually even a little bit of a victory like Badr or the beginning of the establishment of the Islamic country. Some companions never saw that. Ammar ibn Yasir's parents, they died in Mecca. And many companions. And that's why Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, this rich companion, of course he did the hijrah, he used to cry. And he said, how will I enter Jannah? And Khabbab and the other companions who suffered in Mecca will enter Jannah too. And he's one of the 10 promised Jannah, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf. So that's about Khadija in summary. But no doubt that, of course, she was a great wife for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and without a doubt, she was his most beloved one. Even after she died, when people ask him, he will say, Khadija is the one that I love the most.
Who raised his kids?
Khadija. You mean after she died?
Uh-huh.
We'll talk about that, inshallah, in a little bit. After Khadija died, radiallahu anha, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was extremely sad. And he decided not to marry anymore. And he used to say, I came with this new matter, this religion. People said, you're lying. And Khadija believed me. People turned their backs to me. And Khadija welcomed me. When the people all abandoned me, she was there for me. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam never forgot about this. To the last day of his life, he will mention Khadija, radiallahu anha. So it was difficult for him. And he did not want to marry anyone after Khadija. Until one of the female companions, one of the ladies came to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam after about almost 1.5 years passed, and he did not want to marry anyone. He told him, your children, they need somebody to take care of them. You have kids, and you can't do it alone, and you're a prophet busy. And he used to say, La zawja ba'da Khadija. I can't marry after Khadija. And he was very grateful to his wife. Until he met Sauda bin Zam'a. She was 83 when he got married to her. Imagine, I mean, if a man, astaghfirullah, again, looking for desire and for pleasure, he will marry 83, yani, this is weird. The reason why he married her was because she was the only Muslim in her family. And she requested that. She said, O Prophet of Allah, if you leave me, I am surrounded by kuffar. And you know what? She was 83 and her father was still alive. So her father was a kafir too. But her father respected Prophet Muhammad. By the way, there are many of the kuffar, those who chose not to believe, they still respected the character of the Prophet, the personality, that he's trustworthy, he's faithful, he's honest. So they were honored to offer their daughters to him. So he married her. Later on, she willingly gave up her share to Aisha radiallahu anha. She knew that at this age, she can't do much for her husband. So the Prophet ﷺ used to give each one of his wives a day of the week. So she said to the Prophet ﷺ, I know you prefer to be with Aisha, and I will give her my turn. So you can stay with Aisha radiallahu anha. So the second wife, first Khadija, second Sauda, the third Aisha radiallahu anha. Aisha, first of all, it was a command of Allah. So this is again to answer those why he married Aisha. She was young. We talked about this before. It was a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's good to know that she is the only wife the Prophet ﷺ married, and she was not married before him. virgin, the only virgin wife the Prophet ﷺ had was Aisha. All of his wives, other than Aisha, were married before him. And either their husbands died or their husbands were kuffar, divorced them, whatever happened. But the Prophet ﷺ, only wife that was virgin, the Prophet ﷺ married her, was Aisha. He married her in Shawwal, and we said when they got the husband-wife thing going, she was 9, and that was normal at that time, as we mentioned. And he loved her the most after Khadija. So Aisha, in terms of love, she was number 2 right after Khadija, radiyallahu anhum. One more thing about Aisha, radiyallahu anha, the most knowledgeable woman in Islam. So the most knowledgeable lady in the Muslim world is Aisha radiyallahu anha. And that again is another reason why he married her when she was young, so she had the good memory and she will teach after him. And this is exactly what happened. And she narrated many of his hadith, especially the women things about period and what to do, how to do the ghusl and stuff like that. We learned all these things from Aisha radiyallahu anha. So marrying her was very important for us to learn about our religion. So this was the third wife, Aisha radiyallahu anha, again the most knowledgeable woman in Islam. And then after that he married Hafsa. Hafsa is the daughter of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. And Hafsa was known for, subhanAllah, each wife is known for something. And she's special in something. And we love them all, our mothers, Ummahat al-Mu'mineen. Hafsa radiyallahu anha, she was known for her ibadah. She used to fast every other day. And she used to do qiyam most of the night, pray. And it's known that the Prophet ﷺ divorced her. And then he went back and he returned her to him as a wife. We talked about because she did not keep his secret. I mentioned this before, I believe. That, did I mention it before? I think I did. That Hafsa radiallahu anha did not keep, she used to get a lot of jealousy. She will get really upset if she sees the Prophet ﷺ showing more love to somebody else. And I said last time, this is a good sign. That means she loves him. I don't know if a husband wants his wife not to care. That's not a good sign.
Was she the only one he divorced?
No. So maybe many people don't know this. The Prophet ﷺ had 15 wives. 15 wives. 4 of them he divorced before getting intimate. So they get married, something happens, he divorces her. So 4 or 5 of them, he divorced them early, just after marrying them. So those are not famous, and they have their own stories why this happened. Those are not considered from the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen, which we know, the 11 wives of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay. The next wife was Zainab bint Khuzaymah radiyallahu anha. Zainab bint Khuzaymah, subhanallah, she was extremely happy when she got married to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but she died 2 months after. She only lived with him as a wife for 2 months only. And then Zainab is the shortest living wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a wife, yani. She was young too when she passed away. Salama, the next one. Salama, or her real name, of course, is Hind bintu Abi Umayyah. Salama is her nickname, and she's famous for that nickname, Salama. But her real name, radiallahu anha, Hind bintu Abi Umayyah. Salama lived the longest out of the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the last wife who died out of the wives of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was Salama radiyallahu anha. And that's why you see that later after the Prophet passed away, most of the problems Salama will go there and solve the problem and help people out. She was very caring and loving for all the Muslims in the Medina. So people really loved her and respected her. The thing is here, who was her wali in this marriage? There is something important to mention here. We know in Islam, and there are more than one authentic hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that a woman cannot be married without wali. Having a guardian is a must. It's not an option. And the only one who said otherwise was Abu Hanifa. And that's why we say everybody, no matter how knowledgeable can they be, they can make mistake. Because there are so many ahadith. Of course, Abu Hanifa's logic was, since, of course, he put some conditions, yani she has to be old enough and this and that, but still, the majority of scholars say a woman cannot marry without a guardian, regardless of how old she was. And the Prophet ﷺ says there is no marriage without guardian. Very simple hadith and very clear forward. You have to have wali. So Abu Hanifa's logic was, since a woman can do contracts, business contracts on her own without any guardian, that's allowed in Islam. Marriage is a contract. Why can't she let herself marry without having a guardian? That's his logic. Makes sense, but we Islamically don't always follow what makes sense. We follow hadith and Quran. Since there is a clear hadith, the majority of scholars say no marriage without a guardian. Now, of course, somebody might say, what if there was no guardian? Let's say a lady, and this happens, it happens a lot, a lady who's a new Muslim and everybody else, because the guardian has to be Muslim. That's a condition. The guardian cannot be a non-Muslim. So her father or her brother or her uncle cannot be her guardian if they were not Muslims, and she's the only Muslim and she wants to get married. Normally, the imam can be her guardian by her permission, if she agrees. That can happen, and we normally do it here, mashallah, tabarakallah, yani, to make things easier for people. But the guardian is a must. So Salama, the thing is, that was her condition, and she did not have anyone from her family when the Prophet ﷺ offered her marriage. There are stories about who her guardian was, and they are interesting, actually. One story says it was her son, Umar. She had a son. His name was Umar ibn Abi Salama. By the way, Salama, she was married to Abu Salama before. And Abu Salama died. And she got extremely sad. And then the Prophet ﷺ came to visit her to make her feel a little better. And he told her, be patient, maybe Allah will reward you or give you someone better than your husband. She said, who can be better than my husband? She really loved Abu Salama. And then she got married to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, no doubt better than her husband. So who was her wali, her guardian in this marriage with the Prophet ﷺ? Some say her son Umar ibn Abi Salama. And that is a proof that a son can be the wali of his mother. In Islam, if a lady wants to marry and her son is there, as long as he's an adult, Muslim of course, he can be her wali, he can be her guardian in the marriage. That's allowed. But there is one problem with this story. The problem is her son was 3 years old. So for him to be the guardian of his mother, that's tough. That's wali. That's the proof. Marry them by the permission of their ahl, their family. But if they have no family, the wali can be the imam, because just like the imam is supposed to be the wali of the whole community in these conditions. So
What's the wali does? What's
he
his job?
agrees. His job is
That's
to
it?
agree.
Oh, okay.
Only to agree. Yeah, to agree on her behalf. That's all. That's all. It's not about. And some people might say guardian means like he's in charge. Like go clean my house, make me chocolate cake. That's not what it means. Because some people think the word guardian is scary. And what guardian? No, it just means it's most likely because see, we don't want the woman to be mixed with the men. So when we are doing the nikah, we asked the wali who represents the lady in that nikah, do you agree? And then we ask the man, and if they both agree, we're done. So this is normally it is just to replace her, so she doesn't have to come out and say I agree. Even though the sunnah is to ask her, even if her wali agrees, the sunnah is to make sure that she agrees too.
Right.
Okay. So we said one story says her son, Umar ibn Abi Salama, was her wali, but the problem with this story is that he was 3 years old. That's not going to work. So then what happened? Because this story seems to be authentic. What happened was, and this is where the confusion came from, the one who was her wali actually in this marriage was her cousin, Umar ibn Khattab. Umar ibn Khattab, radiallahu anh, was present there. When the Salama, the Prophet offered her marriage, she said, I don't have a wali, a guardian, except my son. So one of the people who were there, he said to the son who was 3 years old, do you agree that your mother, he was joking with her, with him. He was just joking with the 3-year-old. And then it's the same name because Umar ibn Khattab and her son's name is Umar ibn Abi Salama. Both of them are named Umar. So people got confused. Who was her wali? So in reality, Umar ibn Khattab was her wali, but because her son, his name was Umar too, and somebody joked with him, you agree that your mother gets married? 3-year-old is like, what is he going to say? I agree, whatever that means. So Umar al-Khattab was her wali in this marriage. It's not her son.
If the son said no, then what?
If the son said no, buy him a lollipop, he will say yes. It'll be easy to convince him otherwise.
It seems that at that time they're all related, huh?
Yeah, that's true. There is always, you find that this is the cousin of that or distant, because they all came from one person. It's one tribe, one big family. So all of them, they tell you like he meets with the 6th grandfather or 4th grandfather of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They all are related. That is true. So now we talked about Khadija radiallahu anha, number 1, Sauda number 2, number 3 Aisha, number 4 Hafsa, number 5 Zainab bint Khuzaymah, the one who lived only a short life with him, number 6 Salama, number 7 Zainab bint Jahsh. Zainab, again, like we said, subhanallah, each wife has something unique about her. Zainab radiallahu anha, she was married before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Zayd ibn Haritha. And they did not get along. They used to have a lot of arguments and fights. The reason for that is because the different classes, Zainab was from a higher class and Zayd was from the lower class in the society. Even though Islam tried to terminate these classes, but people still had it's not that easy to eliminate that completely. So they used to have a lot of fights, and Zayd used to go to the Prophet ﷺ and say, oh, it's not working. And the Prophet ﷺ will tell him, be patient. And this is in the Quran, by the way. This is mentioned in the Quran, that every time Zayd comes, and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says, أمسك عليك زوجك واتق الله. Keep your wife and fear Allah.
He's
And then
also the adopted. He was also considered the adopted son for Sayyidina Muhammad.
Before adoption, in that regard, was forbidden. Now, of course, in terms of adoption in Islam, you are allowed, not only allowed, encouraged to adopt a child, to take care of a child and raise them up the Islamic way is very good, as long as you do not change their last name to yours. And you have to tell them when they are old enough to understand that you are not their biological parent. So that is important. But Zayd was the adopted son of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted that kind of adoption to become forbidden, normally you cannot marry the wife of your son. This is a permanent hurma. You know, we talked about this. Certain marriages will make other marriages permanently haram. Permanently haram. For example, if you marry a woman and then you divorce her, you cannot marry her mother. That's permanent hurma. You cannot marry your mother-in-law. Well, why would you want to marry your mother-in-law anyway? That's weird.
She cooks well.
That's probably a good idea, actually. This is the hurma da'ima, permanent, what do you call that? Muhram, permanent muhram. But my sister-in-law, I can marry her in case, God forbid, I divorce my wife. So this hurma mu'aqqata, temporary muhram. Is this confusing or makes sense? As long as I am married to my wife, I cannot marry her sister. But if, God forbid, I'm not married to my wife anymore, I can marry her sister. That's why she has to wear hijab in my presence. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to make sure everybody understand that Zayd is not the son of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Because Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam changed his name. And that's in the early days, that was even before prophethood. And he called him Zayd ibn Muhammad. He really loved him so much when he adopted him. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to make sure everybody understands that, he ordered Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to marry Zainab after Zayd divorced her. To make sure everybody knows that Zayd is not the son, because again, this is the permanent hurma as well. You cannot marry your daughter-in-law, even if your son divorces her. Does this make sense, or everybody's just like, you know, like, okay, whatever you say, we agree.
It makes sense.
Huh?
It makes sense. Mm-hmm.
So because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to tell everybody that Zayd is not the son of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Therefore, Prophet Muhammad can marry Zayd's wife after he divorces her. And this is exactly what happened. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam married Zainab after, and this is again mentioned in the Quran, فَلَمَّا قَضَى زَيْدٌ مِنْهَا وَطَرًا زَوَّجْنَاكَهَا. When the iddah, the three, you know, the iddah of divorce, the three periods pass, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam married Zainab radiyallahu anha. And sometimes, by the way, one time, this is interesting again about Zainab, some wives came and they were kind of playing with her and they kind of hurt her feelings. Like, the Prophet married us before you and this and that. So she was sad one time and she went to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and she told him. So he told her, next time they bother you, tell them, and this is a hadith Bukhari, authentic, and this is an important hadith in Aqidah, by the way. Tell them, زَوَّجَكُنَّ أَهَالِكُنَّ. All of you were married and your guardians were your families. Your wali was your father, your uncle, somebody from your family. Except for me, the one who let me marry Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was Allah himself. So from above 7 heavens, and this is again the answer to those who say Allah is not above 7 heavens. This is an authentic hadith. Allah is the one who let me marry, who married me to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam from above 7 heavens. This is the exact wording, and this is again tells us in Aqidah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on his throne above 7 heavens, not everywhere or nowhere, like some people say. So that's the only wife. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is her guardian in this nikah. And that's an honor, no doubt.